pulled Grettir up to sitting. And then, surprised at the strength of the one on the other end, the two of them began to pull and tug and pull and tug until they snapped the fur cloak in two. Now Grettir saw his chance, and he grabbed the beast around the middle, squeezing his spine with all his might. But the beast reached down, and with his sharp claws, squeezed at Grettir's arms until he was forced to let go. Now the two of them careened about the room, causing more chaos than was there already. Grettir saw that the being was trying to pull him outdoors, and he felt that though he was a mighty force inside the cottage, he would be even more powerful out of doors. So he did his best to place his feet against the foothold at the bottom of the door frame, and pushed away from that being as hard as he could until he saw that it was no use. And now he reversed his strategy and threw himself with full force at the beast, surprising him completely so that he fell out through the doorway, pulling rafters and the doorframe with him. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never harm me. If the stone break the crown, beware the curse befall thee. With the coming of summer, the Bjorn had not yet found a way to overcome Grettir, and he began to consider all means of treacherous actions and trickery. The Bjorn had a foster mother, an evil crone. It was said that she was all but bedridden with the infirmities of her age. In her youth, she was well versed in the sorceress magic. But that was when the people were heathen, and Iceland had adopted Christianity, so all black magic and sacrifices were forbidden by law. And she sent it off with one more pronouncement. To the Isle! To the Isle to harm Grettir!
The story that I have to tell you is about a dead guy. Aaron Kelly was dead. Nothing anybody could do about that. And, actually, to tell you the truth, he had been so rotten and miserable and mean and just downright grumpy for as long as anybody could remember that folks were actually, they were a little bit happy to see him go. He just sat down in his favorite old rocking chair and he began to rock back and forth. To tell you the truth, this was kind of a new situation for the banjo player. He didn't have an idea in his head. He just shrugged on the widow's side, and Aaron grinned. Hoping to high heaven that his banjo was still in tune, which would have been just an accident, really. Began to play.
Jared, he saw Steve's bag on the dead man's pedal. What the hell? Steve never broke the rules. What was that bag doing down there? And then, before his very eyes, this fog came up over the trestle. And even the high beam of the locomotive couldn't make its way through it. Tempers were running high. Something had to be done.
The foreman knew he had to get rid of Billy Joe or there would be a riot on his hands. But that something had to be done in a way that the tribe would not uprise themselves. But Billy Joe's spirit stayed behind, needing revenge.
Have you ever heard the river sing? The way its voice rises and falls. Ooh, ooh. Grandmother, she walks over to one enormous ear, and it is a sickening sight. As she comes closer, she sees great clumps of hair growing out of the side of it, and each of them are holding multiple clots of great greasy earwax. Grandmother, she walks up to it, trying not to smell. She holds the sharp stick right at the bottom of Sonoqua's giant ear. She lifts up the stone. Bam! She brings it down. Sonoqua, her eyes jolt open, her mouth drops open, she cannot even make a sound. Suddenly, she sits up and she's roaring and she's howling and she's screaming. One arm goes out, grandmother goes rolling across the stone floor.
But instead, I ran over, I jumped up on the lower berth, and I threw my hands up into the upper berth. And what I felt, it felt like the form of a man who had been wet for a long time, and he stunk of stagnant seawater. And when I squeezed onto the form, liquid oozed between my fingers. And I started to pull, and when I pulled, a creature came out behind it and flung itself up against me and crushed me up against the wall. And then it wrapped its corpse-like arms around me, and it began to squeeze me and tighten so much so that the air was squeezing right out and I couldn't breathe. And I wanted to scream for help and scream in horror, but I had no breath left in me. And I could feel as he constricted his arms around me. It was as if my arms were breaking on their side, and I looked up and I could see in his gray face the hollow eyes and his breath coming cold and icy as if seaweed was rotting throughout him.